Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of the Field and Garden Podcast. It is your friend in flowers, Lisa Mason Ziegler, and I'm really glad that you've chosen to drop in here today because I know you have a lot of choices and I appreciate it very, very much. And so we have a very, very exciting topic to talk about today. But before we jump in with our guest, I just want to remind everybody that this podcast is made possible and brought to you by thegardenersworkshop.com, where our mission and our vision is just to help equip anyone that wants to grow cut flowers, whether in your backyard or to start a flower farming business. And we invite you to drop in anytime at thegardenersworkshop.com. So I am really excited today to welcome Tricia of the Simple Sunflower. And she and I, we didn't know it, but we had a mutual connection. But I'm going to let her introduce herself and tell us a little bit about what the Simple Sunflower is. And then we'll talk for a second of how we're connected through dogs. Y'all won't be surprised by that, right? So Tricia, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This is really exciting. I've just been so blessed to be able to have this relationship with you and your business too. So it means a lot to the Simple Sunflower. So I'm a local family physician in Newport News, Virginia, and I teach family medicine residents and other residents who are training in their specialties. And so I have joined this organization called the Simple Sunflower since 2021. And the way I found out about that and joined it was that one of my training physicians, Dr. Eleanor Love, who lives into her name dearly, Dr. Love, decided to start this organization when she was a medical student at VCU, which is also my alma mater. And she used to work in the floral industry, and she wanted to find a way to use her skills in floral arranging to benefit her patients as she was training in medicine. And also running into the pandemic, trying to find ways to give back and to help in a period of time when she just felt like she was kind of helpless. So she started partnering with local venues in Richmond, Virginia to receive flowers that were used in local events like weddings and receptions. And they would bring those to the hospital after the event, and a group of volunteers would arrange them into smaller bouquets and deliver them to patients. So that's how it was born. And then one day I met Eleanor as she became a resident here at Riverside Hospital doing her transitional residency on her way to becoming a radiologist. And I was her faculty, and we fell in love with flowers together and talked about this mission. And I said, well, how about we open a chapter in Hampton Roads? So the first extension chapter was opened in 2022 in Hampton Roads, Virginia, which I'm currently the president. And we've been making bouquets and delivering flowers to patients at Riverside Hospital ever since.
So that is so awesome. So for any listeners that aren't familiar, we are in southeastern Virginia. I know I sound like I'm from Georgia, but we really are in southeastern Virginia. And VCU is the Virginia Commonwealth University, right? And Riverside Hospital is a huge organization here in our region. And this is just so exciting for me. And so y'all know my journey that after we have been in high production flower farming for all these years, about 5 years ago, we started taking our foot off the pedal of high production. We cut out a lot of our commercial customers, continued to serve our retail customers. And then as our business started growing in the education side of things, and, that's my real gift is to teach other people, right? Well, we knew that we still needed to grow flowers, but we wanted to back off of the business part of retail. And we thought, what in the world are we going to do with all these flowers that we produce every week that we use for our shop and show and for book imagery and all that kind of stuff? So my niece, young people, what did she do? She jumped on the internet and hit a search engine asking organizations that use flowers. And lo and behold, the Simple Sunflower came up, and we just couldn't believe it. And I have to tell you, Tricia, the first thing, being the professional business person that I am, so I'm thinking, okay, this is probably a small group of people. They really don't get how many flowers we're going to have. But then I went on your website, was very impressed. And then when I saw that you actually are a nonprofit, at the bottom of your website says 5013C, and I thought, this could be our people. They're organized. And we were just so impressed out of the gate with everything with you guys. And then I just dropped you a little email, and the rest is history, as they might say, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it was at a time that we were so grateful to make that partnership with you. Just for reference, in 2022 and 2023, we made about 300 to 400 bouquets to deliver to patients at Riverside. In 2024, after our partnership with you, we made over 1,000.
Awesome.
So you were a huge part of that boom in the number of bouquets we were able to deliver to patients, and it's been wonderful. And it's so great to get your flowers and to give them a second life, which is what our mission is, to reuse and repurpose. We never buy new flowers. We always just take flowers that were already donated from another use to repurpose them, and it's wonderful.
And so I dropped Tricia a little email after I read the website and said, hey, this is what we do. Would y'all be interested in flowers? And she replied back, we had back and forth a couple times. And then I think you were having dinner with your mother-in-law, right? And tell us that little story.
Yeah. So I was having dinner every week. My husband and my 2 daughters and I have dinner at my in-laws' house with my mother-in-law, Chris, and my father-in-law, Jim. And we were having conversation over dinner, and I said, guess what? I just made a new partnership with the Simple Sunflower with this wonderful local flower farmer, Lisa Ziegler. And my mother-in-law said, what? I know Lisa. And my mother-in-law, Chris, has a therapy dog, Zyra. She's had many therapy dogs over the years, and she works at Riverside as well with the therapy dog program. And through not just the dog, but through flowers and gardening, she's known Lisa as well. So that was a wonderful little connection.
Yeah, that was so fun. It's so funny that Chris has jumped in and out of my life in so many different ways. And so that was just a sweet little backstory. So I want to hear a little bit, Tricia, about, what is the process? So first off, to be clear, what we're talking about is this organization gathers flowers that would be destined to the trash, compost, what have you, and repurposes them into little arrangements to share with people, whether through a hospital. I guess that's pretty much y'all's main focus, right, is actually at the hospital. And so what I would like to hear is, what does that look like first of you guys collecting and finding flowers beside, I know what it's like here. You can share that too for people, but what does that look like?
So it looks a lot of different ways. We try to make it happen as however we can, but we first, with our donors, will either have our volunteers pick the flowers up from the donor site. For instance, with you, we have a volunteer, often my mother-in-law, Chris, who will come receive 6 buckets full of beautiful, fresh cut flowers from your front porch, and we will transport them over to the hospital. We also have received flowers from the shipyard when they have big keelings of ships and things. They'll have huge functions. So our volunteers will go to the shipyard and collect all of those bouquets and flowers and transport them in our cars over to the hospital. Sometimes the donors, like Courtney Ingram Florist, she'll actually do weddings in Charlottesville and drive them all the way to our hospital and drop them off at the hospital for us, where our volunteers will receive them there. And we have several florists that'll do that. But once they get to the hospital, we have another team of volunteers who meet there at the hospital, transport all the flowers down to the volunteer services office, where we have a little office space, and that's where the hard work happens. We start pulling them apart and cutting them and trimming them. We have vases that have been donated to us and that we try to repurpose, and we create as many small bouquets as we can. It's usually, for a large wedding, we can get between 50 and 70 bouquets.
Wow.
And then we set them out and arrange them there in the office. And then the hospital volunteers, who are vetted and trained for privacy and things like that at Riverside, will then come the next day and deliver them to the patient's bedsides, along with the nurses. Usually the nurses love to be the ones to deliver the flowers because it's a great relationship building that they do with them. And they know who could really use a bouquet that day. Usually the nurses are so great at picking that special person out. So,
as always, there's so much more behind the scenes than you imagined. I hadn't even thought about that the actual delivering to the end receiver, that it has to be a vetted person through the hospital, right? You can't just have anybody. I mean, lots and lots of pieces. So
actually, I'll mention too, just the interesting thing about that is, because I'm an employee there, recently we've had some volunteers who donated things when we don't have a lot of flowers. Like right now, we had a youth group from Coastal Church donate Valentines. They made 40 Valentine cards. And so I took those young girls up to each nurse's station last week, and they delivered the cards directly to the nurses who then took them to the patients. And that was kind of a neat way and a creative way to do something in the off season when we don't have a lot of fresh flowers.
I mean, you know better than anybody. There are so many people that just need a lift, whether it's what they're going through or not having visitors or what have you. That is just so awesome. So what do you feel like is one of the most rewarding stories or moments from your work? I mean, is there something that comes to mind that was really meaningful?
Yeah, actually, quite recently, my church, Trinity Lutheran Church, is a regular donor. They have floral arrangements on the altar that they will regularly donate to us. And one weekend, we had that combined with a large wedding donation just a few weeks ago. And I was able to go and facilitate that event. And I was able to take one of those arrangements up to one of my congregants who was on hospice. Oh. And it was one of, the last times I got to see him, but I actually got to deliver that to his bedside. And he wasn't super alert and cognitive at that time, but he woke right up when he saw that bouquet and just smiled and thanked me. And we had a little interaction. And I thought, that's exactly what we're doing here. If he just wakes up intermittently and sees those flowers and it makes him smile, that's totally worth it.
Flowers just have, we talk about it all the time, but people that haven't experienced it firsthand yet, of what happens to people when you give them flowers. It's really pretty spectacular. That's kind of what led me into being a flower farmer. I don't know if I ever told you this story that my grandma, 30 years ago, probably a little longer than that now, had a massive stroke. She was totally paralyzed and she was in a nursing home, and our family stayed with her every day. I mean, one of us was there from, 7 o'clock in the morning until they kicked us out. My day was Tuesdays. And she was all the way at the end of a really long hallway. I mean, just tons of rooms, right? Well, what do you do when you go to a place like that and spend all day? You know what I mean? You're always looking for something to use to interact So I had planted this one little 10-foot row of zinnias, and I cut them. And now I had been going to see her every Tuesday, and people never looked up. They never acknowledged me as I was walking down that long hallway. When I walked in, I can still remember it was Oklahoma zinnias, the small zinnias. I walked in with that handful of zinnias, and I'm telling you, people laughed, smiled. One man that walked up to me, the nurse told me he hadn't spoken in over a year. And you know what he said to me? My mom grew zinnias. It was like the most amazing thing that had ever happened to me. And literally by the time I got to Grandma's room, I had a trail of people, wheelchairs and walking behind me. And that was the day that I learned that flowers are really, really special. They're really, really special. And that began my journey. And so for folks that are listening, perhaps that are local to us in the Hampton Roads, southeastern Virginia area, how would a florist or a flower farmer get involved and support you, whether it's contributing flowers or wanting to be involved? And then we'll talk about how people outside of this area might be able to find somebody like you.
Yeah, there are so many ways we could use involvement in any way that people feel compelled. First, if you're a florist or a flower farmer or anyone who runs an event venue that people have flowers at, if you're interested in doing that and donating those flowers after events, you can email me directly, and you can find me on our website, simplesunflower.org. And you can write me and I will write you back, and we will make sure that we arrange the date, the time, and everything that needs to be done, whether it's transportation or just receiving the flowers together, so that we get our volunteers coordinated. It's kind of a surprise to people, but we're not always sitting at the hospital waiting for flowers. So it does take some coordination to get our volunteers mobilized. If you're interested in arranging the flowers and being a part of the actual making of the bouquets, we always need volunteers. And again, you can go to our website and sign up for our listserv. Every time we have an event, I send out an email to all of our local volunteers. And then if you're available, it's not a commitment on a regular basis, you can sign up for that specific event. And it has all the details that you can come and help us out. And then the other thing that's really always in need are vases or vessels to make the small bouquets in. And so we have people all over Hampton Roads, at the CNU campus, in my office, at work, all over, but donating vases. And we've actually found in our mission to reuse, repurpose, recycle, that some of the best vessels are jelly jars, pickle jars, ball jars. We actually had a couple get married in Charlottesville, and they wanted so badly to donate to us, but their flowers wouldn't make it because we didn't have a way to get them to us. But they had purchased ball jars for their drinks for all their guests. And they donated 200 of those to us, and they lasted for so long, making bouquets for patients. So that's another way people can help us out, by donating vases or vessels.
And I'm glad that you brought that up, because we feel like most often folks, for even in their home, get way too big of vases. I mean, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see there's an array of vases behind me. Our favorite, most used vases are always, I love jelly jars, exactly what you said, all of the cannon jars, the pints. Those are perfect, and especially for what you're doing. So that's a really great tip. And I bet you're going to get some vases now, because people love repurposing stuff. I hate putting a jelly jar in the recycling bin, right?
Yes. All we ask is that people wash them and strip the labels off of them for us, because that takes a lot of time and we have to do that. And then you can drop them off at any of our drop-off locations. We have a bin on the CNU campus in the Student Center. We have a bin in the Volunteer Services Office at Riverside Hospital. We actually have a collection bin at the Brentwood Family Medicine Center where I work. So you can always bring vases to any of those locations and we'll take them anytime.
So vases that are label free. That's another great point. Yeah, that's a hard one. Now, what do you think if there's folks that aren't in our area? How could they seek out somebody like you?
So first, we have now a new chapter in the area. So we've expanded to Georgetown in Washington, D.C. So we have Richmond, Virginia, Newport News, Hampton Roads, Virginia, and Washington, D.C. at Georgetown Hospital. So for anyone who's up in the Northern Virginia, D.C., Maryland area, that's a great location to get involved, because we're already established and working there. And we are actually expanding across the country to several other chapters that are in progress. If it's something that you feel compelled you want to start in your area, one of our additional missions is helping people do that. So if you want to be a part of the Simple Sunflower, we're happy to help you open a chapter, but you don't have to be. We just want to help you do it. So we're happy to share our knowledge, our wisdom, our mistakes, our successes over the years at becoming the organization we are today. So you can always contact us for that. But there are tons of people out there doing the same work. We are not that original. So actually, if you go to our website, simplesunflower.org, we actually have a page on there that will direct you to ways you can repurpose your flowers, and other organizations who've already kind of made themselves known around the country that do the same thing.
That is so helpful, because I know I can feel the wheels turning in people. It's like, I would love for our flowers to be reused. I mean, especially, we have a large flower farming audience. So, we are just so honored here at the Gardener's Workshop to partner with you guys, and to share our flowers, because we feel the same way. It's like knowing that, I do not mind putting beautiful flowers in the compost heap. I've done that since we've been in business. You always have leftovers, right? But when we've discovered you and really found an organization that could really take volume and just do so much good with it, do you think that has changed or impacted your organization in any way, having local flowers to use that were grown here, started here, and kind of like community connection?
Absolutely. Actually, last year, around the time that you and I partnered with Simple Sunflower, we had another group, the community growers in Williamsburg, who also heard about it and started growing in their community garden flowers just for us.
Awesome.
So very similarly, we've got local people doing that. Additionally, we have now a local potter who, whenever she makes mugs and vessels and things, if she has ones that maybe have a little imperfection in it, she donates those to us for vases. So we've really tried to branch into the community for people who do, local made things. And those homegrown flowers, like I said, almost tripled how many bouquets we were able to make last year.
So that kind of ties into what advice would you give to anyone, whether they're a flower farmer? And we know, one of the messages that I try to hit home with folks so much. It's like you don't need a very big cutting garden to produce a lot of flowers. So there's a lot of people out there producing way more flowers than they actually might need. And, a sideline, the other thing, we have done this for several years, have taken our flowers, many of our leftovers, and made bouquets and taken them to like retirement homes, Minnowwood. We had a special tie over there. And, we showed up at the police department 2 years ago on Mother's Day with 100 sunflower bouquets for those guys and ladies and everybody to take home. So, I just wonder if there's somebody that's thinking about that, maybe I'm not a flower farmer, but I do produce a lot of flowers from my garden. How would they start donating? That would probably be somebody that would actually drop them off at your hospital. You would have to prearrange all of that, correct? How would that work?
So again, they would just contact me because I kind of manage the schedule, and I try to batch groups together. So for instance, I would get my Williamsburg growers to try and donate on the same day as you. Although you've donated so many flowers, I've tried to split them up a little bit now to spread the wealth. And then we talk about what the best date to meet is so that you can harvest at the right time, so they're the freshest they can be. And the local growers, and honestly, there are not many donations that are too small. I mean, when we get church bouquets, it's only making about 6 bouquets for patients, but that's okay, because if 6 people get a bouquet that day, that's meaningful. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to a nurse's station and they've just said, thank goodness you're here today. We just had a horrible situation. We've got a really sad family that could use this. And so they just get very happy when they have something to kind of lift someone's spirits, because as you can imagine, there's a lot of bad news in the hospital. So it's a great way to help people cope through a lot of that stuff. So if you're local and you want to donate, don't think that your donation is too small or not meaningful. Every donation is important to us. So just contact me and we will arrange something.
And again, that is the simplesunflower.org that's home base to everything that we're talking about here. So what do you see as maybe some of the biggest challenges in flower repurposing in general? What are the challenges that you guys face?
So one of them is just the type of flower that you grow. They can make a big difference in how long the bouquet lasts and how easy it is to make the bouquet. So again, we love every flower we receive, so I don't want to hate on any flowers. But we had one wedding that had these gorgeous bouquets of marigolds, but they were very difficult to make into bouquets because they were so short-stemmed. So flowers that have longer stems that give us a little more play with the size that we can use for the bouquet, they tend to be really helpful. Things like zinnias and dahlias that last a long time, even when they start to dry, they still look pretty. Those are nice because they can remain in a room for an entire week. Sunflowers are perfect, which is your specialty, which has been great. And the other thing people don't think about are like aromatics, like lavender and basil and things like that you've donated to us. I didn't realize the impact of those on people until we started using them so much. And there are certain patients who prefer not to have them, but most patients love the smells because hospitals don't always have the best smells. And when you bring a bouquet of lavender into a patient's room, it's calming, it's lovely. So those are good things to grow as well.
We weren't sure if fragrance would be allowed, that it could have in a situation. Perhaps our secret weapon for our customers for all these years at farmers markets is the lemon basil. I don't think I've ever met anybody that doesn't like the smell of lemons because it smells just like a fresh cut lemon.
It does.
So that's really good to know that's especially appreciated. So we'll definitely be sure to include those. And so do you find that there's any special colors that people like more? Or, I guess people are probably just grateful, but what does your experience look like for that?
The jewel tones and the bright colors tend to get the most reactions, but honestly, we've never had anybody say they didn't like them. But there actually is a lot of research out there on this. And there's a study, we even have it posted on our website because there's some science to back what we do. And they did colors like red and orange versus white and yellow, and the red and orange were preferred. So it's interesting depending on what colors you get. But I'd say the response for us is usually to the bright colors, rainbow colors, things that just kind of bring you joy.
And that aligns with marketing also, as when I'm teaching, especially new flower farmers, we tend to follow, because we're looking at catalogs, right? They're looking at all these beautiful flower pictures, and people are falling in love with salmon and blush and all of these. They are really luscious, lovely colors. But when you set out bouquets at a farmer's market or at a supermarket you've sold to, which ones go first? The jewel colors, the hot colors.
Yeah.
So that's definitely, that aligns with that. And that's just an affirmation. All those other colors are great for weddings and events, which I would guess you get some of those because you get weddings and events.
Oh yeah. Lots of pinks and whites. Yeah.
So let's just go over again. How can people connect with you? Are you on social media? And how can they learn more about your work?
Yes, we're actually really trying to keep growing our social media presence. But right now we are mainly on Facebook and Instagram. We post after every event that we do on there, so you can see pictures, and we combine all 3 chapters on one channel. So you'll see what's going on in DC and Richmond and here all in the same place. And it also offers you more opportunities for participation and seeing what we're doing. We've had volunteers who live here but go to school in Richmond, so they'll volunteer in both places. That happens a lot. So yeah, please visit us on Instagram, visit our website, visit us on Facebook, and friend us there so we can keep you up to date with what's going on when we're having fundraisers or donation drives or anything like that.
And so to get to you on Instagram, is it, first off, are your social media links right on your website?
Yes, they are.
Okay. So Tricia, is there any final thoughts or things that you would like to add that we haven't really talked about maybe or covered?
I would say another great opportunity I want people to know about is we love groups of people who want to get together and do things together. So we've had a lot of local organizations for volunteerism, high school students, clubs, things like that, who want to come and sponsor an event. And so that's been very helpful, actually. Serve the City Peninsula has been volunteering with us for a while now. We have a homeschool group of children who'd like to do these events for us. Peninsula Catholic High School has a club. They actually established in the school. And so we have events that will actually take flowers there. They'll arrange them and then we'll take them back to the hospital. So if you have a group that you belong to or just some friends you want to get together, we would love to have you partner with us and host an event as well, because it's very helpful to have a bunch of people who are all in the same place wanting to do the same mission together to serve. So that's another option for contributing.
And just so many great ideas, you know? I mean, it's just ideas just dripping. I'm just sitting here thinking, what a great girlfriend garden club get together to make them and take them to the hospital and drop them off. And there's just so many ways. And so, listeners, I just really encourage you to visit thesimplesunflower.org and learn more about it. If you're interested in volunteering, I can say that if you shoot an email to Tricia, she will answer you. And, it's just been such a pleasure for us. And, it's just so funny, even out harvesting sometimes, especially when we're coming to the end of a crop and we're cutting. And Bobo, normally we'd say, well, this is enough for us to do the show. And we just let the rest of the flowers go because they're at the end of, we're getting ready to take them out maybe the next week or something. Now I hear Bobo and Elizabeth saying, well, but we want to have more of these for the simple sunflower. It's a favorite color or something, you know what I mean? So it's really impacted us too. And it warms our hearts to think about just other ways to share the love of flowers, because, I'm telling you, you just don't know until you hand those flowers to somebody that's down in the dumps for whatever reason, or just having a bad day, how it lifts them up. And so we thank you for all your volunteer work and for what you guys are doing.
Oh, and we are just incredibly, incredibly grateful to you guys for the work you're doing to help us with that as well. We couldn't do it without your flowers, certainly. So thank you. And we can't wait to do it again this season.
Yeah. So it is our pleasure. And so, friends, we're going to wrap it up here. And just a reminder, you are always welcome over at thegardenersworkshop.com. You can sign up for our farm news. I mean, we have so much stuff over there, y'all. I'm just saying, you can fall in and never come out. And it's a great place to fall into. So, friends, until we meet again, ciao.